We have covered in the previous that how important the roadways are to us and how they have preceded the railways. We have discussed some topics like the construction cost is lower. It can be constructed in the dissected and undulating topography, can be constructed in higher gradients, and these are the advantages we have of road transportation over the railways. So next, on the basis of capacity, we have classified the roads into the different categories. We have the super highways, we have the national highways, state highways, district roads, other roads, and border roads. So before discussing that what are super highways, let's just discuss what is road density and what kind of problems are faced by the road transport. So the road density is the length of a road per 100 square kilometer of an area. So if we calculate this road density, we calculate it by, we take the total length of the road of a particular area. Suppose if we want to calculate the road density of India, then we take the total length of the road. We divide this total length by the total area and in square kilometers, and we are taking the density per 100 square kilometer. So what we do is we multiply it with 100, so we get the total density of the road. Next, we'll take the problems faced by road transportation. First of all, we see that the distribution is not uniform. The distribution of road is not uniform. That is based on some factors, that may be the physiographic factors or the economic factors, or maybe any other factor which, due to which the distribution of road is not uniform in India. Next, we have inadequate in comparison to traffic. The flow of traffic, in compare with the flow of traffic, the road density is very low. It has to be increased. We have almost 40% of the unmetalled road. And you know that the unmetalled roads are not at all suitable for all the climates. If it is rainy season, then it becomes very difficult. Almost 40% of the roads of India are unmetalled roads. Inadequate national highways, although we have a good percentage of national highways, but still they are inadequate according to the need of the country. Then we have very old and narrow bridges. Whatever the bridges we have, they are very old and very narrow also. Sometimes it leads to traffic jams and very congested areas. Then we have the breadth of the road is very narrow. We need to increase the breadth of the road. Sometimes even the national highways are also of 2 lane or right. So these are the problems faced by the road transportation is the distribution is not uniform, inadequate, unmetalled roads, inadequate national highways, old narrow bridges, and the breadth of the uh, road is very narrow. So let's take the super highways. If we see, the super highways are the projects which are being taken care by the National Highway Authority of India, NHAI. Under this super highway, we have three main projects. We will discuss the three projects one by one. First is the Golden Quadrilateral. It connects the mega cities. If we see on the map, the Delhi connected by Kolkata by Chennai by Mumbai, and Mumbai again by Delhi. These are the four mega cities connected by this Golden Quadrilateral. It has the length of almost 5,846 kilometers. And the main objective of this Golden Quadrilateral is to connect these mega cities and for uninterrupted traffic flow. Next, we have the North-South corridor. It is linking Srinagar to Kanyakumari. So you can see almost from the north to south, almost all the states are connected by this highway. It is also the longest national highway, and it is covered by the national highway number 44. The total length is 3,745 kilometers, and it is connecting Srinagar to Kanyakumari. In between, it is passing through states like we have Punjab, Haryana, parts of UP, Madhya Pradesh, we have then parts of Maharashtra and Telangana, Andhra Pradesh. So it is connecting many states and to the southmost point, that is Kanyakumari. These are mostly 4 lane or 6 lane highways we have. Next, we have the part of super highways, that is east west corridor. If you look at this map shows all the 3 projects of the super highways. So let's discuss only the east west corridor. If you see from the east, it connects Silchar to the Porbandar. Like eastern parts are connected with the western parts, Porbandar in Gujarat. It has the total length of almost 3,300 kilometer, and mostly it is covered by National Highway number 27. So these are the 3 main projects. Sometimes 1 mark question is asked from these super highways. So one, we have the Golden Quadrilateral connecting 4 mega cities: Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, again Delhi. Then we have the north south corridor connecting Srinagar to Kanyakumari, and we have the east west corridor, that is Silchar to Porbandar. With this, we complete our super highways. Sometimes the question comes from the super highway 1 mark question, or a 3 mark question, which is asking what are the 3 projects of the super highways. Next, we have the national highways. National highways are given the name, that is NH, and then they have one numerical number. These link the extreme parts of the country. If you see on this map, it is a web of national highways you can see, and connecting almost the extreme parts. Although there is absence of national highways in few parts, we'll also discuss that it is only because of the topography. It is also a primary road system. You see that it is the primary road system which connects almost all parts of the country. Even in earlier also we have discussed that roads also act as a feeder to other means of transportation, that is waterways and airways. So it is the by the national highways and other type of roads. National highways are laid and maintained by a government body, that is Central Public Works Department. Sometimes it is asked in 1 mark question that which government organization lay and maintain the national highways. So it is by the Central Public Works Department, CPWD. As we have already discussed, NH44 is the longest highway with a length of 3,745 kilometers. That is also the north-south corridor connecting Srinagar to Kanyakumari. Next, we have the state highways, district roads, other roads, and border roads. So let's discuss them one by one. State highways are the roads which connect the capital of a state with other different district headquarters. So we can see the mainly the roads running into a state and which connects the district headquarters to the capital. For example, we have Chandigarh as the capital of Haryana. So if any road which is connecting the district headquarters of Haryana to Chandigarh, so these are by the state highways. These state highways are constructed and maintained by PWD, that is State Public Works Department. National highways were maintained by the Central Public Works Department, and state highways by the State Public Works Department. Then we have the district roads. District roads are those roads which connect district headquarters to other places in the district, and they are maintained by the Jila Parishad. Next, we have the other roads. These are some special roads in the rural areas or in the villages, and these roads receive their impetus from organizations like Pradhan, some schemes, that is Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana, and the main objective of these roads is to connect villages in the country to towns or by all season motorable roads. That means their main objective is to connect these village areas or the rural areas to town or cities with the metal roads that can be used in all the seasons, not by the unmetalled roads. Then we have a special organization that was formed in 1960 by Government of India, that is Border Roads Organization. It especially looked after the construction of border roads in the areas where we have our frontiers. And if we see that we have the frontiers in almost the Himalayan region, and this organization look after the construction of road in these region. It has two main objectives. One, it has the strategic importance, because if it is near the frontier, so the frontiers should be easily approachable. Second, to take care of the economic development of these difficult areas, we have the very high elevation of the Himalayas. So just to look after the economic development of these areas, border roads are constructed. Next, we have the railways. You know that railways, the first train was started from Mumbai to Thane in 1853. This was during the British government, and it covered the distance of almost 34 kilometers. During this time, Lord Dalhousie was the Governor General of India, and he is also known as the father of Indian Railway. So the first train was laid in 1853. Sometimes question is asked in which year the first train was steamed off. So it was in 1853 from Mumbai to Thane. Railways are very important to us, as you know that it is very important for the transportation of large number of goods, heavy goods from the inland areas, like where water transport facilities are not available. So railways act as a very important means of transportation in these areas. So let's discuss the importance of railways one by one. Railways are considered as the principal mode of transportation for freight and passengers in India. It is the primary, or you can say the principal mode of transportation for the goods being carried from one place to another place. In the previous chapter, that was manufacturing industries, you have studied that it is not possible for for industries to produce good anywhere in India. For that also they need some specific places which is more suitable to them. So whatever the produced goods are there, that has to be transported from one place to another place. So railways plays a very important role in transporting these goods and passengers. As you know that Indian Railways is the largest public sector undertaking. Due to decentralization, there are various sectors which have been going to the private sector. But if we see that Indian Railways is the largest public sector undertaking in India, it conduct multifarious activities. The main purpose of railways is not just to transport goods and people from one place to another place. It perform various activities, that is like business, sightseeing, pilgrimages. You might have seen around you, like we can take the example of toy train of Darjeeling, that is specially for the tourist purpose and sightseeing. We can take the example of many pilgrimages trains, like recently a train was also started from Delhi to Vaishno Devi. So these are some pilgrimage trains, and here also railways plays a very important role in transporting large number of people from one place to another place. It has been also a great integrating force. Railways has somewhere connected all parts of India with each other. It has integrated our country from one part to another part. Because of the railways and the roadways, it has become very easy to travel from one place to another place. Next thing, apart from this, it has also encouraged the development of industries, agriculture, and tourism. Because with the facility of railways, it has become very easy to transport agriculture produce, manufacture goods from one place to another place timely. That is like without the delay of time, it has become very easy. So somewhere it has also accelerated the growth and the development of this sector also. So these are the important points we have discussed for the railways. Sometimes a 5 mark question comes for the importance of railways. So you can include these points, that railways are the principal mode of transport. It is good. It is a largest public sector undertaking. It conduct multifarious activities. It act as a great integrating force, and also it has accelerated the development of other sectors also. So if we see the railway line running in India has travel on different gauges. We have three types of gauges, that is the broad gauge, meter gauge and narrow gauge. On the narrow gauge, it is the like old, the previous or the initially laid railway lines ran on the narrow gauge, but now our government is making efforts to transform these narrow gauge and meter gauge into the broad gauge. So we can see that 1.676 meters we have the length of broad gauge. Almost 85% of the railway line, almost 85% of the railway line runs on the broad gauge. It is 85%, and almost 11% run on the meter gauge, and around 4% is on the narrow gauge. Our government is making efforts to transform it into 100%. So with the time it will be 100% also. Next, you can see here we have different types of gauges. This is the distance between one railway line to the other, between the two railway lines. This is the distance. So just to increase the breadth of a train, we have opted to the broad gauge, that is 1.676 meters. These are the three types of gauges on which our railway runs. This is one of the very important question. I say distribution pattern of railways. There are many factors which affect the distribution of railways. So if you look at the map, this is the web of railway networks we can see. If we see the density of this railway network, we can see that if we compare the whole Indian distribution of railway, the northern part, the northern plains of Ganga and here the Indus River system, it has the maximum density. So there are many factors which leads to the development of railway in the northern area. Sometimes a 3 mark question is also asked, why there is more number of or there is more density of railway in the northern part. So we'll discuss it. If you see the Himalayan region, the states of Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir, it is, there's hardly any railway, almost absence from the railway lines. It is only because of the physiography it becomes very difficult to construct railway lines on the high mountains. If you see the Himalayan part in the Sikkim region and the northeastern region, almost absent from the railway lines. Apart from that, we have the sandy desert of Rajasthan. It is also difficult to lay the railway track on sandy desert. Then we have the Ran of Kutch, the swampy areas and the marshy areas of Sundarbans. Apart from that, if you see the 4 states, these are mostly covered by the forest areas. We have the parts of Odisha, then we have Chhattisgarh, parts of Madhya Pradesh and Jharkhand. These are also, they also have very less railway lines. So these are the forest cover areas. So there are some factors which led to the development of railway, and there are some which hampered the growth of railways. So let's discuss these factors one by one. The vast level land of northern plains, high population density and rich agriculture resources have facilitated the growth. So if you see in the northern part of India, the northern plains, here we have the highest density of population. Because of the population, rich agricultural land, and other development of industries, and it also has the good economic opportunities. So we have the more density of railways. Next, we have less growth due to unfavorable conditions, high relief, sparse population, and lack of economic opportunities in the Himalayan region. So, Himalayan region is not only difficult to construct the railways, at the same time it is sparsely populated, like less number of people reside in these areas, and there are less economic activities. So just because of this thing, the development of railway is less. Next, we have less growth in sandy plains of western Rajasthan, swamps of Gujarat, forested tracts of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, and Jharkhand. So we have already discussed the desert part of Rajasthan here, the swamps of Gujarat we have here, the Rann of Kutch region, and the forested parts of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, and parts of Madhya Pradesh have hampered the growth of railways. Next, we have the contiguous stretch of Shahadris and obstacle. If you see the Shahadris, the Western Ghats, they run from north to south here in the western coastal areas. So if you see that there is very less growth of railway lines, there is only a one line but that is running parallel to Western Ghats, and if it is passing to the other parts, that is through the passes it has on the way, that is Thal Ghat, Bor Ghat, and the Pal Ghat. It is passing through these passes. These are the natural passes. The Konkan, an important economic region, has enhanced railway growth. So if you see the Konkan region, it we have the Mumbai region, and we have the Gujarat region here, Maharashtra region. So it has very large amount of economic activities happening in this area. So due to this economic reason, it has enhanced the growth of railways, although there is very difficulty in constructing the railway lines because of heavy rainfall and other factors. So apart from that, still the economic activities have enhanced the growth of railways in these areas. So sometimes a question comes, what are the factors influencing the distribution of railways, or how railway is influenced by physiographic, economic, and administrative factors. So you need to include these points, and at the same time you need to be familiar with the physiography of India. With that, it becomes very easy to explain the distribution pattern of this railway. Next, taking, as I told you, that with every means of transportation, we will discuss the importance and the problem faced by these means of transportation. So if we see the problem, there are many problems faced by the railways. First, there are many passengers who travel without tickets, which is economic loss to our railway system. There are very frequent thefts and damaging of the railway property, like whenever there is any opposition from the public, railways and roadways becomes the first victim to get destroyed. So there is a frequent damaging of the frequent of the property, pulling of chain unnecessarily, which leads to the delays and then to the accidents. Then we have the undulating topography, which we have already discussed in the factors which hamper the growth of railways. Marshy areas are not suitable for the development of railway lines. Then bridges across the wide river beds. In northern plains, we have the many rivers, and these rivers have very wide river beds. So sometimes it becomes difficult and very expensive to construct bridges over these river beds. Then we have the sandy deserts, which hamper the growth of the railways, mountainous regions, forest cover areas, lack of economic opportunities, like we have in the Himalayas, where we have lack of economic opportunities. So the construction of railways is very less there. Sinking of track in the Konkan region, but still there are more number of economic opportunities. So bearing that loss, somewhere our railway department is managing the construction of railways in the Konkan coast. Then sometimes we have the climatic conditions like the fog, which hamper the proper functioning, proper running of these railway lines. Although some instruments are being tested just to just to have a proper continuity of railways during the fog time also.
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने।
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो,
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो।
मित्रों हम उठे और जागे,
मंजिल आने की ध्वनि सुने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने।
राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विद्यालय का है द्वार खुला सबकी खातिर।
शिक्षा परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर।
शिक्षा और परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर। दुनिया में इसके केंद्र बात
कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने। स्वयं बने, हम
Again we are back. So before starting with the chapter, I would like to take up some questions, especially from the part which we have already covered. So there is a question from one learner asked ki how the roads are classified in India. So the roads are classified in India on the basis of capacity. We have the super highways. You can give the example of Golden Quadrilateral North South Corridor or East West Corridor. Then we have the national highways, state highways, district roads, other roads under Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana, and we have the border roads. So one student asked ki what are the characteristics of border roads. So if you see here, the border road organization look after the construction and maintenance of the border roads. So the first feature will be this, that who maintains the construction of these roads. Second, they have a great strategic importance because these roads are constructed on the frontier areas, and it also plays a very important role in connecting the far reaching or the difficult terrain areas of the Himalayas. Next feature will be the focus on the economic development of these areas. If we see the areas in the states in the north, that is Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and in the northeastern areas which are not accessible by the mainland or other people, so here the border roads plays a very important role in uh, making these areas accessible to common people. So these are some features which are mentioned in your book for the border roads. Next important question was asked by a student, that how railways are so important today. Like in today's or present day situation, how railways are functioning as a very important means of transportation. So here if you see the distribution of railway, that railways have covered almost all parts of India, although there are exceptions, but still almost all parts of India it has covered. So the kind of facility it is providing to the people and the economic benefit it is getting from the passengers, because large number of passengers are traveling in these trains just because of the accessibility to many areas. So it has a great economic benefit. Apart from that, it is not only that railways is functioning the role or playing the role only to carry large number of goods and passengers. Apart from that, it is also playing the role of many other activities, like the multifarious activities. We have business, sightseeing, pilgrimages, also acting as an integrating force, and it has developed the other sectors also. So this is how railways is important to us in the present day situation. And one student asked the question, what is the social significance of the railways, like how railways is important from the societal point of view. So it, here we can say that it is acting as a great integrating force. It has connected all parts of India. And apart from that, the pilgrimages, like even in religious matters also, it is also playing a very important role. So this is how in from the social point of view railways is playing very important role. The next question was, okay, other questions are based on the syllabus which we will cover now. So along with that, I'll explain these questions also. So after railways, the problem faced by railways will take up with the pipelines. Although this pipeline transportation is a new concept, earlier water was being transported through these pipelines. But if we see that it now it is playing a very important role for transporting the crude oil, petroleum products, and even some other products which can be converted into slurry. So these pipelines play a very important role. Although when we lay these pipelines, it is expensive, but after that there is very minimal cost for the maintenance. Apart from that, it has a great benefit uh, of the transshipment losses and the delays, like on time the products are delivered on the areas. So our government is focusing a lot on the development of these pipelines. So let's discuss the importance of pipelines. This is also one of the important question. So here it is, it is very useful for transporting the crude oil, petroleum products, and natural gas from the oil fields to the refineries or to other fertilizer factories where these products are being used. Next, it can transport solids also when it is converted into slurry. It is very beneficial for the locations of those refineries which are far off. Like we can talk about the northeastern states. We have Digboi and Naharkatia, which are kind of very far off from the main land. So it is very beneficial for those areas. Initial cost of laying pipelines is high, but the subsequent running costs are minimal. To maintain these pipelines, it takes very less amount of money. So although initial cost is high, but it helps a lot in on-time delivery uh, of the goods. And apart from that, it do not apart from that, the transshipment losses, like there are minimal chances of accidents and everything. If we transport it through the railways or through the roadways, there are more likely the chances of accident and loss of the fuels there. So these are the important points, the importance of pipelines. It can be a very important 5-mark question. Next, we have three important pipelines, although there are many more pipelines, but still we'll discuss three important pipelines in your chapter. Sometimes 1-mark question is asked from these pipelines. So first we'll take the HVJ pipeline. H stand for Hazira, V stand for Vijapur, and J stands for Jagdishpur. These are the places, main places connected by this pipeline. Although on the way it connects other places also. So if you see the Hazira pipeline starting from here, Gujarat region, connecting Vijapur in Madhya Pradesh and Jagdishpur in UP. Although it has been extended to New Delhi and in Haryana also, covering the national capital territory regions and Haryana in Sonipat. So, and apart from that, to Rajasthan also, it is connected to Kota. So this is very important pipeline, right? So it is Hazira, Vijapur and Jagdishpur pipeline. Next we have the Salaya to Jalandhar. Salaya in Gujarat. The pipeline connects Salaya to Jalandhar. On the way, it delivers to other important cities also, like we have Ahmedabad, Mathura, Delhi region. Third is the Assam to Kanpur. The pipeline which connects from Digboi to Kanpur. I have shown it into two parts. From Digboi to Baruni in Bihar. On the way, it connects important cities like Guwahati. It has so, and the second portion is shown from Baruni to Kanpur here in UP. So here also it is connecting many important cities like Patna, it has Allahabad, it has Lucknow, it has. So these are the three important pipelines. Although, like if we see the previous year questions, no 3-mark question or 5-mark question is asked from it, but still remember it for 1-mark question. It may be asked that which pipeline connects Gujarat to Punjab region. So it is Salaya to Jalandhar region. Next, we have the waterways. If you see this picture, this explains everything. Like waterways nowadays is gaining lot of importance because it is very economical and very environment friendly also. But there are some drawbacks of waterways, that it is not available everywhere, and there has to be some perennial rivers or the regular flow of water in large quantity if we need a waterway. So we have very few places where it can be developed in the coastal areas and the perennial rivers. So let's talk about the waterways, as it is the cheapest means of transportation. Here you can see that 1 liter of fuel can move 24 tons on the road, and if you compare it with the waterways, it is more than 4 times being transported by the water transportation. So you can see the economical cost and the cost which is being uh, incurred by the cost which is being incurred by the waterways. So you can compare it on the road, it is more than 4 times, even with the comparison of railways also. And it is very suitable for carrying the heavy and bulky goods because it has the capacity to carry uh, bulky goods, and it is very fuel efficient and environment friendly, which we have already discussed. If 1 liter is doing the 4 times work, uh, the work which is done on the road, so it is very environment friendly also. Next we have the national waterways. The way we have the national highways, in the same way our government has also named these water routes as the national waterways. So let's discuss about the 5 routes mentioned in your book. Please look at the map. The national waterway number 1 is on the Ganga river. The Ganga river from Allahabad to Haldia. It connects here the UP region, Bihar region, and entering into the West Bengal region, connecting these areas, and it economically also it is very beneficial. It is almost 1620 kilometer route which is connecting Allahabad to Haldia. Sometimes a 1 mark question may be asked which parts or which cities are connected by national waterway number 1. So it is on the Ganga river. Then we have the national waterway number 2. It is on the Brahmaputra river. It also has a huge amount of water carrying it with almost 891 kilometers, running only into the Assam state. So if we see from Sadia to Sadia to Thubrai, it is connected on Brahmaputra river and connecting the states of Assam, West Bengal, Arunachal Pradesh and Meghalaya. Then we have the national waterway number 3, which is on the west coast canal of Kerala. This is the Kerala region. It is connecting the main cities of Kollam to Kottapuram. Here we can see the Kollam is being connected to Kottapuram. Next we have the national waterway number 4. It is including the river system of 2 rivers and 2-3 canals also. If you see on the map, it is connecting the Godavari river, then we have the Krishna river, then here we have the Kakinada canal, Eluru canal, then we have the Bunkingam canal connecting Puducherry to the Kakinada. Here also if you see on the Godavari river, it connects the city Bhadrachalan. Bhadrachalan is being connected by Kakinada, and on the Krishna river we see that Wazirabad is connected, and here Puducherry is connected to the Kakinada canal. So 2 river system and a canal are being included in the national waterway number 4. If you see the national waterway number 5, here also we have 2 river system. One is the Mahanadi river, another we have the Brahmani river. It is a seasonal river here, and it is being connected to the uh, it is being connected to Dhumra. The Paradvip stretch on Mahanadi river, and if we see on the Brahmani river, we have from Talcher to Dhamra, right? So this is the national waterway number 5. National waterway number 6 is in progress. So it is on the Barak river. If we see, it is on the Barak river, and it is connecting Lakhimpur to Bhanga. So these are the national waterways. You have to remember it by heart. Sometimes a question comes, name the national waterways of India. All right. Next is, this was the inland water system. This was the inland water system. Now we have the coastal water system. This is the coastal transportation, and it is a very important part of your this chapter. Many times question is asked from this portion. So we'll discuss and we'll take up each port one by one, and we'll discuss the importance of each port, because it is very important from your map point of view as well as from the theoretical point of view also. So if we see, the total coastline of India is 7,516.6 kilometers. This is the total coastline of India, measuring 7,516.6 kilometers. It has many ports, although will take up the major ports only. So it has 12 major ports and 187 minor ports. So let's take the Kandla port first. It is in the state of Gujarat. This port was constructed mainly uh, to this port was constructed an alternate port to the Karachi port, because when India got divided at the time of partition in 1947, the Karachi port went to the Pakistan region. So there had to be a port which could replace this Karachi port. So Kandla port was constructed immediately after the independence. So this was the first port constructed after independence in 1947. So Kandla port. Apart from that, this port is a tidal port. Sometimes a question is asked that which is the tidal port in India. So here you can say Kandla port, and it is very conveniently it is handling the imports of highly productive granary as well as the industrial belt. You know that Gujarat, this Maharashtra region, and other parts of Madhya Pradesh and UP. So it is the nearest port if you see. So it handles the export and import of these region. Next, we have the Mumbai port. It is the biggest port. If you see, just to supplement this port, we have the Jawaharlal Nehru port also constructed next to Mumbai port, just to relieve the traffic from the Mumbai port. So Mumbai port is the biggest port, and it is a natural port. We can say, and well sheltered harbor also. It is a natural harbor, and Jawaharlal Nehru port is constructed to ease the traffic on the Mumbai port. So these are on the west coast of the India. Next we have the Marmagao port. Here it is in Goa. It is very easy to remember also that Marmagao port is in Goa, and it is the premier iron ore exporting port. Export almost 50% of India's total export of iron ore. Next we have the Mangalore, New Mangalore port. It is in Karnataka, and it also very useful for the export of iron ore. You in earlier chapter you have studied about the Kudremukh mine. It is in Karnataka only. So maximum iron ore from the Kudremukh is exported from Mangalore. Next we have the Kochi. It is the extreme southwestern port, like on the southwestern coastal areas. It is the most lower most important port. It is also a natural harbor, and the specialization of this port is that it is located on the lagoon. So sometimes one mark question comes, which port is located on the entrance of a lagoon? So it is Karachi port. Lagoon is the part of water which is separated from the main water body by a land mass. So it is situated on uh, lagoon. Next we have the Tuticorin. Now we have entered the ports of on the eastern coast. Tuticorin is the lowermost, and it has a very significance for transporting goods to Maldives, to Sri Lanka, and other coastal areas, or the like Lakshadweep part of India we have. So it is very useful for that. Next, again we have the ports on the eastern coast. We have the Chennai being the oldest artificial port in India. It was during the time of Britishers also, and even before that also. So it is the busiest port next to Mumbai. As we did the Mumbai as the largest port, so Chennai is the second largest port, and it is the oldest port also. Sometimes one mark question may आता है ये कि which is the busiest or which is the oldest port in India, artificial oldest port. Next, we have the Vishakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh, and it is very deep, landlocked, and well protected port. It is landlocked port in Andhra Pradesh. Next, we have the Paradweep. It specializes in the export of iron ore. Next, we have Kolkata. Kolkata is also a very busy port, and just to ease the traffic on Kolkata port, Haldia port was constructed. So Haldia port is a subsidiary port to Kolkata. Kolkata is also has specialization that it is a tidal port. Apart from that, it is inland riverine port. Like, it is not on the main coast of sea. It is connected by Hooghly River, which is a distributary of Ganga River. It is connected by that, and it is a main inland riverine port. Sometimes one mark question it is asked that which is the inland riverine port of India. So it is Kolkata. So with this we have discussed the importance of port. Like, one question was asked from a student, what is the importance of ports in India? It says that ports are very useful for the international trade, the trade which we'll discuss later on. The international trade is the trade between the countries. So these ports play a very important role in handling the export and import of Indian landmass. Apart from that, as you know, that water transport is the cheapest mode of transport. So these ports play a very important role for this cheapest means of transport also. Next, we have the airways. Airways is becoming very important nowadays, and apart from that, it has gained a lot of attention of people. So starting with, it was nationalized in 1953, like, it was undertaken by the government. Although with time it has been decentralized to the it has been allowed for the private sector also. It was nationalized in 1953. It is also considered as the fastest and most comfortable mode of transportation. Apart from that, it also said that it is prestigious mode of transport. How airways is a prestigious mode of transport? Because it is not easily affordable by common people. Only the high income group can afford the facility of this air transport. Although it is becoming very common for the middle class families also, still it is very important means of transportation nowadays. It can cover very difficult terrain, like high mountainous, dreary desert, wherever the construction of roads and railways is not possible. It is easy for us to travel to those areas through the airways. So airways is playing a very important role in reaching us or making these areas accessible to the common people also, like the difficult terrains, desert areas, and the long oceanic stretches. It is also very useful for traveling overseas. You know, it takes very long to travel overseas through the water transportation. So it is playing very important role because of the globalization. You know, there is lot of interaction and exchange of services among the nations. So during this airways is playing very important role because large number of people are traveling from one place to another place. It has made access easier in the flood areas and the international frontier. Whenever there are flood, as India has a monsoon type of climate, so it rains for few months in India. There are many areas which becomes the victims of flood, so it becomes very easy to reach those areas with the help of airways. Apart from that, our government has made some organizations which are specially for providing these services. One of them is the Pawan Hans Helicopters Limited, which provides helicopter service to the oil and natural corporations. Like, we have the offshore fields like Mumbai High, we have Basen, we have. So it provides the facilities to offshore areas. Apart from that, it is easily reached to those areas which has difficult terrain, especially in the northeastern states. If you see the northeastern states on the map of India, here northeastern states, they are all almost covered by the Himalayan region high mountains. So in these areas, government is providing this airways services to common people also. Somewhere they are providing it at the cheaper rates. So this is the importance of airways we have discussed. Next, we'll discuss the major airports. It is also important from your exam point of view and from the 1 mark point of view also. Sometimes sometimes airport name of the airport is asked in 1 mark question also. Like for example, they can ask you, where is Indira Gandhi International Airport located? It is in Delhi. So let's take these places. First, we'll take with the Amritsar Airport. Amritsar somewhere here. You have to remember the location as well as the name of the airport also. So Raja Sansi Airport is located in Amritsar. Then we have the IGI airport in Delhi, that is Indira Gandhi International Airport. Then we have the Mumbai, that is Chhatrapati Shivaji. So you can remember Chhatrapati Shivaji as the Maratha in Maharashtra and Mumbai in Maharashtra. So you can remember it. And you also need to keep in mind one thing, that Jawaharlal Nehru is a port and Chhatrapati Shivaji is an airport. Sometimes students do get confused between these two. So just keep in mind while learning these two, port and airport. Next, we have the Hyderabad Rajiv Gandhi International Airport. Next, we have in Chennai. Chennai is also for the port as well as for the airport. So the airport located in Chennai is the Meenam Bakkam. Meenam Bakkam is a place near the Chennai. Next, we have the Kolkata airport, that is Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Kolkata we have as a port also, and we also have as airport. So you need to remember this place. So Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose port is located in Kolkata. Next, we have the communication. Like what is communication and how it is playing a very important role nowadays. It is very important question, and somewhere it is one of the hot questions we can say, because nowadays communication is playing very important role. We can take the present day situation, like we all are going through the crisis. So it is just because of this communication channel it is possible for you and me to interact. Like you are sending your questions through the WhatsApp, and I'm answering you through the TV channel. So it is just because of this facility, very important role being played by communication here in making sure by providing continuity to the learners, and just to make sure that their studies do not get disturbed even in such difficult situations also. So here communication is of two types, like the personal one way communication and uh, the two-way communication. So communication refers to exchange of ideas, messages, emotions, either written or oral, or from one place to another place. So there are some major means of communication, that is radio, press, films, or we can talk about the personal communications like telephone we have. So these are they play a very important role in communication. So if we see that India has the largest postal network in the world, the postal network of India is the largest in world. We have classified our post into two groups, the first class and the second class. First class consists of the cards and envelopes, which are mostly airlifted from the stations, although they use land route also and water route also. They are also airlifted. The second class mail includes the big packages, you can say, like book packets, registered newspapers, or periodicals. Most of the time they are carried through the land and water transport only. Just to facilitate this delivery of mail, our government has introduced 6 mail channels. Sometimes in 5 mark question or 3 mark question, the name of these channels are asked. So you need to remember, it is the Rajdhani channel, Green channel, bulk mail channel, metro channel, business channel, and periodical channel. And all these communication is possible through the combination effort of technology and the communication technology with the space technology. So it is integration of the development of space technology with the communication technology. Another means of communication is the mass communication. Like I told you, we have two types of communication. One is the personal and another is the mass communication. So in personal communication, two person interact with each other. In the mass communication, when there is interaction with the masses, with large number of people, and this is being done by the TV you have, all the radio system we have. So it is through these channels. So if we talk about the mass communication, it plays a very important role in the present day situation as well as in the present day scenario. So mass communication provides entertainment and create awareness among people about various national programs and policies. You all see news and advertisement. So through these news and advertisement, our media is providing information to the people, and they are also giving awareness to the people about the programs and policies which are being launched by the government. Apart from that, we have All India Radio, that is Akashvani. It also broadcasts many programs in regional and local languages. If you see on media also, like the news is being broadcasted in various languages, English, Hindi, or other languages you have. In the same way, on All India Radio also, we have the programs being broadcasted in different languages, and these programs are of various categories. It is not only like for entertainment or just to give information to people. It keeps in mind the choices of various categories of people, like the choices of students. Many times it broadcast educational programs also, making the choice of like farmers. We can say many times the programs for the benefit of farmers are also being broadcasted on these TV and radio programs. So this is how it is creating awareness. At the same time, it is providing knowledge to our people by broadcasting such programs. Apart from that, sports also, like educational and sports programs are also being broadcasted on mass media. Doordarshan is the largest terrestrial network in the world. Here, I would like to give one example also. Like a few days back, Ramayan, the great epic, was being broadcasted on Doordarshan. So it was the most viewed channel in the world. That was the most viewed channel. Sorry, that was the most viewed program. So you can see the extent of Doordarshan and how it has become the largest terrestrial network in the world. India is also the largest producer of feature films. As I have told you that whenever there is any entertainment program that is being produced in different languages, so in even in the feature films also, India is producing many feature films in different languages. Like you have the Punjabis or any South Indian language, many films being broadcasted of the different language short films. So India has become the largest producer of feature films. There is a censor board also which keeps a check on the production of films. If there is anything objectionable, that is removed from that. So it is the Central Board of Film Certification. It is very important question from the 1 mark point of view. Sometimes they ask that which government institution or which government body certifies the Indian and foreign films in India. So it is the Central Board of Film Certification. So here you can see that it create lot of awareness. Then also uh, broadcast many programs of various categories, various languages, like education, sports, entertainment. You have Doordarshan being the largest terrestrial network, and India is the largest producer of feature films.